Hi, it's Chloe and welcome back to my channel. But today I'm going to be talking about how I budgeted for my trip up to Hershey. And I'm super excited to get into this video, and on that note, we're going to get started. So for starters, I have two other videos that came out. The first one was my stay at the Hershey Hotel, and the other one's a health update. So I recommend you view both of those before watching this. That way you can get familiar with where I stayed, the doctors I see, etc. Because I'm going to encompass all of that. And there will be some eyes that you can click in the corners and they will take you to both of those videos. So now let's get started for real this time. So I have a spreadsheet that I created, which I'll get into that in a little bit, and that details everything that I actually had to pay for the most part. But what I did was I looked up online like hotels in and around the area and how much they cost. And pro tip, so if you are a peds patient under the age of 18, or you're a mother that's going through fetal surgery for an unborn baby, then not sponsored, but typically near most children's hospitals or like adult hospitals that have a pediatric side, they have a Ronald McDonald House where you could stay there for, I think it's $20 a night. But if you can't pay that, they won't turn you away. So that's an option. And as an adult, so a lot of hospital systems do this. I know down here at Emory, they do it, as well as up in Hershey where I go. But basically, what you can do is you can go online, and it's typically found under patients and visitors, but a lot of hotels in and around the area will offer a discount to people that have to stay at their hotel for a medical trip. And how you obtain that discount is different from hospital to hospital. So like for instance, when I'm up in Hershey, I have to prove to them that I'm staying there for a medical trip. So what happens is I get little letters in the mail detailing my appointment reminders, and I give those to them. Or what I do is I have an app. It's not my chart, it's something similar, and it has my appointment reminders on there, and I just screenshot it and print it out. And then I had to go to Michigan one time to see a specialist for something that I ended up not having, which is why I never talked about it on my channel. But the way they had me do it was I had to call a hotline that was through the hospital, and they had a coordinator that did all this for me. So again, it just varies. And that only works though for one room, and the patient must be staying in that room. Same thing with the Ronald McDonald, kind of, where only the parents and siblings are allowed to stay in that room. No grandparents, no aunts and uncles, and no pet goldfish. Yes, I should also mention that you could rent a Vrbo or an Airbnb where you would basically have a kitchen, a living room, stuff of the like, and that way you can cook your own meals. I did not go with an Airbnb or a Vrbo because none of the places nearby that were available were accessible. Okay, back to the video. And what I did was I looked at all the hotels in and around the area that offered the discount. And then I also looked at the cost of Ubering to and from the airport, because I don't drive, and then Ubering to get food, and then places that have free breakfasts on site, stuff alike. So basically, Hershey's kind of in the middle of nowhere, so all the hotels in and around the area only either had no food options at their hotel other than a sundry shop, or they offered a free breakfast. And then there was the Hershey Hotel, which had multiple restaurants on site. And they also had a wheelchair accessible van. They could take you anywhere within a 5-mile radius, including Hershey Medical Center, for free. They will take you to and from the Harrisburg airport, but it's going to cost you some money. And it was cheaper than using an Uber. And also having those restaurants on site was a lot easier too, because if I were to take my wheelchair out and someone denies me, then I have to wait that much longer. I don't have to pay extra because I got denied, because I can complain to Uber and stuff. But yeah, those were all deal breakers for me. And again, you'll see everything in the spreadsheet. But again, all deal breakers. Also, something really exciting had happened that same week, and I will share more about that in a future video if you want. Comment down below. And I was also like getting off of Tea on the Hill through the Spina Bifida Association, and that was like literally Sunday through Tuesday, and then Wednesday I had a day break, and then Thursday I flew up to see my doctors, and I was there Thursday through Saturday. So your girl was going through it. So I'm like, why not treat myself? Now, I should mention that this place does not offer the discount. However, the lodge does, which is across the street from the hospital, so that tracks. But the literal Hershey hotel does not. Now, was this expensive? Yes. Is it something I do ever again? Probably not, because it was pricey. Unless if I'm put in this situation again, which in that case, I would definitely do it. Was it worth it? 100%. Everyone there was so nice, accommodating, and friendly, and I was never once judged for using my wheelchair, except there was like a older lady or something at one of the cafes that I went to, and I was pushing myself in my wheelchair, and she said, "Don't you get a speeding ticket with that thing?" Which I was like, insert eye roll. And the reason why I brought that up is because some disabled people don't like it when you say things like that, because either A, they find it annoying, or B, they hear it over and over and over and over again and find it also annoying, or they just don't like it. I also looked at the Hershey Hotel's restaurants and took a look at how much everything was going to cost as far as food, and kind of factored that in. And I also wanted to go to the Hershey's Chocolate World and buy souvenirs. So that's one of the things I didn't factor in, but I'd be sure to have some money left over to do that kind of stuff. Now, I could not go to the park because it was closed, because it was off season. If I would have waited till April, then they would have opened. Now, let's talk about flights. So, I have some options per se. So the 3 nearest airports to where I was staying is Harrisburg International, Baltimore, which is Thurgood Marshall, or Philadelphia. And Harrisburg is only like a 20-ish minute drive, and the others are 2 hours in opposite directions. One going this way and one going that way. And I chose Harrisburg because it's a lot closer. The other airports are cheaper, but keep in mind, I don't drive, and it would have been 2 hours, each way. And I didn't know if like an Uber or any type of transportation would go out that far. And also, Harrisburg is a little bit more expensive, but it was worth it. And when I go to any of these airports, I do not get to choose what airline, because the airports are so small that Delta is the only airline that'll fly to and from all of those airports. So I do not have a choice as far as airline, but I do have a choice as far as airports. The Philadelphia airport and Thurgood Marshall in Baltimore, they're both the same price. regardless of which one you choose. I had personally flown out of all three of the airports, and I personally love Harrisburg the best because of its convenience. But if someone were to go up with me, like my mom, and we couldn't afford to fly out of there, I would choose Philadelphia, which Baltimore is a whole other story. And if you want to know about what happened, comment down below and I can do a video on that. And as far as airport food, I factored it in a little bit for both Atlanta and for Hershey. But with Atlanta, they have a lot more food options than they do at Hershey in their airport. But basically, I looked to see what kind of like restaurants are in the airport, which there are a lot, and I looked at how much, I looked at their menus, looked at how much everything typically costs, blah, blah, blah. And with Hershey, their airport's so small, I know what kind of restaurants they have, and it's not that much. Like literally the only place you can go to get like food that isn't sit down would be Subway or Dunkin' Donuts. And then they have like 2 sit down restaurants and a Starbucks, and then 2 what's it called? 2 other just like sundry shops / magazine shops. So I knew everything, but I factored in prices for that too. So I'm now going to get into the literal doctor's appointments, which yes, those are not free, and they, yes, do cost money, but I have Anthem as my primary and Georgia Medicaid as secondary, and we are working on getting my Medicaid to be used out of state. However, for this particular trip, it did not matter because I got a custom wheelchair, and that caused me to meet my deductible and almost meet my out-of-pocket maximum. So therefore, all my appointments and everything up there was free. However, that doesn't mean that I still didn't budget for that, because in the event that everything gets denied, Medicaid-wise, or B, my wheelchair didn't come in time, which I no cap thought was going to happen because there was a certain part that was on back order and I didn't know when it was going to come in, and neither did my wheelchair company, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, but everything is free. And I understand that healthcare, like the cost of it has changed. But what I did was I went into, with my primary insurance, they have an app. It's the Sydney Health app. And I went in there and looked at, when I went up last year, because I go on a yearly basis. And when I went up last year, they like wrote out how much everything cost. And I factored that in. Also, what you can do, by law in every single state, you are entitled to something called the No Surprises Act, which basically means you are allowed to call the billing and insurance department before your appointment and ask them how much it's going to cost, regardless if you have insurance or not. And if they can't tell you, just tell them that by law you're entitled to the No Surprises Act and you have to be told. And they'll typically cough up how much it's going to cost, pun intended. Now, yes, even though I do go to a spina bifida clinic, they don't just like make one big bill and slap spina bifida clinic on there and send it to health insurance, because health insurance doesn't recognize a spina bifida clinic. They only recognize the literal doctors and procedures and medicines, therapies, etc. inside of the clinic. So therefore, they bill everything separately through insurance. And then insurance will spit back how much it's going to cost. And now, without further ado, we're going to get to the spreadsheet. Okay, so here's my spreadsheet that I have, and I just titled it Hershey Expenses. And right here, I have everything as far as like what's gonna cost money, and then how much it's gonna cost, and then for everything that I had to pre purchase, such as like flights, hotel rooms, I put a check mark by each thing that I paid for so that I knew that I paid for it. So basically, I have my flight round trip for 3 days, and then I have a piece of checked baggage both ways. I forgot to mention that I do checked baggage because I'm in a wheelchair and it's very hard to push a wheelchair and use like a carry on piece. And plus, I have too much medical equipment to be able to do a carry on anymore. And although you can have like a medical bag that's a carry on, still. And then I also forgot to mention this, but wheelchair transportation to and from. And I put down the Uber because I thought I had to Uber to the hotel and the clinic, like there and back and stuff. But the thing is that they at Hotel Hershey have a wheelchair accessible van, and they will take you anywhere within a 5 mile radius, regardless if you're disabled or not, for free, including the hospital. And then Uber from airport and hotel. So this was not an Uber. So the company, like the Hotel Hershey that I was staying at, they will pick you up from the airport and like take you to the airport as well. However, it does cost money because it's outside of a 5 mile radius. And I looked and it's cheaper than the cost of an Uber, and you lessen the risk of the Uber or Lyft driver just like looking at you and driving off if they see that you're in a wheelchair. And then breakfast and dinner for 2 days, I factored that in. I did not factor in lunch, and the reason why I did not do that is because I didn't know how long clinic was going to be and if they wanted me to come back after clinic to do training of anything in case if I needed to get it done. Because, again, like I mentioned in my health update, no doctor down here knows how to treat an adult with spina bifida when it comes to that stuff. So, and I did not put a total, and I'm glad that I did not yeet in a total because I ended up going back for lunch and I forgot to mention the souvenirs. And then these are my appointments if I had to pay for them. And spoiler alert, like I mentioned earlier, I did not have to pay for a single penny for any of my appointments. But I figured I would put that in anyways. Because I did this before I got the wheelchair that caused me to blow through everything. But I've got the ultrasound, urology, specialty ultrasound. Dr. Romanowski is my PMR, physical medicine rehab doctor, for those of y'all that don't know that lingo. And then the grand total for all of that. And that was based on last year. And how you can do this is a couple different ways. Number one, whenever you book something, they'll always ask for an email or a phone number. And they will, after you purchase everything, they will either text you or email you a receipt. And that's what they, did was they had emailed me the receipt and I looked there. Or what you can do is you can go online on your a lot of banks nowadays have apps, and you can look on your app and look at your credit card or debit card transactions. And then yeah. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to make a blank template and I'm going to yeet it into my Google Drive, which will be in the description. And you'll be able to take a look at it there and make your own kind of template to budget for whatever you need for hotel to budget for whatever you need for medical trips. And that's it. If you have any other questions or comments, feel free to yeet them into the comment section and I will do my best to answer them, and who knows, maybe it'll turn into another video. I thank you guys so much for watching this video and I can't wait to see you guys again soon. Bye.